What is up, guys? My name is Jake Yazuski. You can call me Jake Iggy or Iggy for short, and this is Iggy's Sports Talk. So, I hope you guys really did enjoy that last preview that Robbie and I did of the AL West, and you're starting to get really excited as I am for this MLB 2020 season. So, now we're going to be covering the NL West. So, please don't forget, go over and subscribe to ROBBIE HYDE. He posts some great analytical and informative baseball content. So go search ROBBIE HYDE in the search bar and subscribe to him. Also, please subscribe to Iggy's Sports Talk. I've been working really hard to get you guys ready for the MLB 2020 season, and I've been putting a lot of effort into these videos. Please also give me a big thumbs up if you did really enjoy this video. So, let's get into it with the NL West.
Robbie and I will be covering the NL West. And I'm going to start off with the team with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who in the last 4 years, you've seen this team either make it to the World Series or just come right to the cusp of the World Series. And when you look at last season, they had one of the best teams in the MLB because they were able to win 106 games, lose 56. And you don't see it a lot of times with teams that are that good to get even better. And when you look at just this rotation, it's one of the best rotations in baseball, and it's just going to dominate again. I mean, when you have the best pitcher in the MLB in Clayton Kershaw, in my opinion, you got Walker Buehler, you got Urias, and then when you got another guy like Alex Wood, who, in my opinion, 2019 was a complete fluke. When you look at some of the guys that we've been talking about over these previews, when they go back to a place that they're comfortable, when they get the pressure off of their back, they're going to pitch a lot better, in my opinion. That's just an assumption, but that's something where, as a former baseball player, with the mental state that these guys have, when you're comfortable, you're going to play well. And Alex Wood is a guy who has played with the Los Angeles Dodgers for 4 years before he got traded to the Reds in 2019. So who knows what's really going to happen with that fifth spot as well in that rotation. You know, you got Bruce Gratterall, who they got from the Minnesota Twins in that Bosch Red Sox trade. We also got Jose Gray and potentially Dustin May as well. But when I talked about who they were able to really improve with, I mean, you can't get better you can't get any better when you add Mookie Betts in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I had the Dodgers were so good last year. I had them winning the World Series, and I was completely bummed out when they got knocked out in the first round. So, yeah, it just seems like this team is right there. Like, but they just can't seem to just get over that hump. 2017, they were right there, minus some cheating. They probably would have won the World Series that year. 2018, our Red Sox completely demolished them in the World Series, where that team was good, but I kind of expected that in 2018. 2019, I thought they were going to come back and be good, and I thought they were going to make it all the way, and they just didn't have it. So you had a guy like Mookie Betts. He is one of the best players in baseball, top 5 player in baseball, where he's good with the bat, he's good on defense, he can make things happen on the bases. That's a kind of a guy where you plug it into a lineup that already has Cody Bellinger, that already has a Max Muncy, a Justin Turner, a Corey Seager. There's just weapons all over this place. And a guy like Gavin Lux, top prospect in baseball. Now you're plugging him in there. You got Jock Peterson and A.J. Pollock who are going to platoon out there. And now you have a DH. So, I mean, goodness. This is one of the best lineups in all of baseball. Starting pitching, David Price did opt out. He was going to be the number 3, which I think that is going to be a bit of a loss a bit because they got him basically to replace Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's now on the Blue Jays. I think that will sting a little bit because that was their replacement for him. So now they don't have that. Of course, yeah, you still got Walker Buehler. He's emerging as one of the better pitchers in the game. Clayton Kershaw, still Clayton Kershaw. He's not going to be Clayton Kershaw maybe 5 years ago, but he's still going to be very good. So you got those guys. Luckily, they have a lot of good prospect depth. You got Dustin May. You got a guy like Josiah Gray, like you said, a Tony Gonsolin. Those are guys you can really plug in, Caleb Ferguson is also there. He's a guy that can give you some starts or maybe even open some games. He can come out of the bullpen. I mean, like you said, Alex Wood, if you can go back to 2017, 2018, Alex Wood, that's going to be a guy. Julio Urias, he was good last year in a small sample size. That's a guy where I've been kind of waiting to bust out a little bit. He was one guy a few years ago where, you know, he was a really highly regarded prospect. I think in a short season, I think the Dodgers are going to be fine starting pitching wise. But with the loss of David Price, and I'm not saying that because he was, you know, coming from the Red Sox, no bias here, but I really do think a guy like that in the 3 spot in your rotation, I mean, especially in the playoffs, I mean, he got the monkey off his back in 2018. He's proven that he can pitch in the playoffs now. And so when you lose a guy like that, I do wonder a little bit playoff wise how deep they can go, because we've seen what they can do with Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler. They haven't made it yet, so they were close in 2018. But as for just the division, I'm not worried about this team. I think they're going to win this division very handedly. But yeah, there's just so many good pieces offensively, starting pitching, and the bullpen's good. You mentioned Brusdar Graterol, Kenley Jansen. He is kind of digressing a little bit over the last few years. I will be interested to see if he can hang on to that closer role this year. The velocity is diminishing. You mentioned Brusdar Graterol. If I had a guy like that coming out in the 9th inning, this guy can throw 100 like effortlessly, and it's basically a sinker at the same time. That guy, I could see him taking over as closer if Kenley Jansen struggles out of the gate. There's going to be a short leash with him, I think, especially in a very short season like this. I don't think they're going to take any chances. I think, you know, and especially if they want to establish that team early on, I think they want to put guys in roles. You know, I think that's going to be a storyline of this season with any team completely. You're not going to have a full 162 game season to establish roles. So I think teams, you're going to see them very quickly, very early on. All right, you're not working out in this spot. Nope, we're going to try someone else in this spot. And I could see a Graterol being a closer for this team. He just has the stuff. He's nasty. It was a little sad when the Red Sox didn't get him. But that guy has closer written all over him. But then even just behind Jansen and Graterol, you got a very solid bullpen. Pedro Baez, Joe Kelly. Who am I missing? Oh, they signed Blake Treinen as well. Not very effective last year, but he was in the Cy Young consideration a couple years ago. I mean, if you can get him to that form, oh my goodness. I like the bullpen. I like the team. I I would have loved it I did love it when David Price was there. But other than that, I'm not worried about this team for the division.
You made a great point with the playoffs, because as we've seen, as I even brought up, when we started talking about the Dodgers, they won 106 games. You don't see a lot of teams that win 106 games losing the first round of the playoffs. And like everybody had such high expectations for them last year, because for a reason, this team was stacked. And when you get even better this next season, and something where the offense is one of the best in the league, they have such high potential. They have proven veterans with some really insane prospects. But as we talked about through all of these different MLB previews, pitching wins championships. And, when you got a guy like Kershaw, Walker Buehler, who are iffy when it comes to the playoffs, we've seen them let up 4 to 5 runs, and that isn't going to win you a playoff series. And then when you got another guy behind him in Alex Wood, who knows what he's going to do in a playoff series, and then just a toss up in the air on what's going to happen with the 5th spot. You know what I mean? Like, you start to look at this Dodgers rotation and really start to get nervous when you start thinking about the playoffs, when you start really looking at the numbers. But they have such high potential. And like you said, with an outfield with Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts in the same outfield, I mean, it's something where Pacoda has them winning the division 97.7%. That's the most percentage of any of any team. And, you know, they also have them winning 34 games, losing 21 points. And, you know, I really think it's all just going to come up to the pitching when it comes to how deep they go actually into the playoffs. But one team everybody is forgetting who could actually put a run for the Dodgers and make them sort of nervous throughout this next season is the Arizona Diamondbacks. And they're a team that surprised a lot of people last season. You know, they won 85 games, lost 77, but that rotation, holy crap, they could have gotten any better with a guy like Madison Bumgarner starting off. You know, they already got a guy like Robbie Ray there, and Luke Weaver, Zach Gallen, both coming off mid 200 or 2.00 ERAs. You're just going to get better and better. And a guy that I know you like, and Alex Young, he pitched 26 games, 3.56 ERA. I mean, how much better of a fifth starter can you get with this team? And then when you look at the lineup, you know, you're really going to need some good seasons from Eduardo Escobar and Ketel Marte because, you know, they both hit over 30 home runs last year, and they really carried that lineup and that whole entire offense. When you add a guy like Starling Marte, Cole Calhoun, they're not going to set the world on fire. They're not in their primes like Cole Calhoun was with the Angels and, you know, Marte was in his prime with the Pirates. When you add those guys to the lineup, they're going to give you some good production. And I really think that this team is really going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I love the Diamondbacks this year. Absolutely love the Diamondbacks. There is a lot of good pieces on this team. This might be one of the most overlooked teams in, at least at the moment, in my opinion, in history. Like, this team is really good. And the only reason they're not being looked at is because they're in the same division as a really good Dodgers team that traded for Mookie Betts. I mean, by default, they're just not going to be looked at. But this is a team in 162 games. You could see this team winning anywhere from 95 to 97 games. It's just good all around. The Madison Bumgarner, like you mentioned, he brings – I don't think he's going to be the Madison Bumgarner, you know, low 3 ERA. It did creep up a little last year in the high 3s, almost a 4. But I think if you can get somewhere in between with him, I think stat-wise he's going to make you better. But I think just intangible-wise he's going to make you better. This is a team where I think they just need to learn how to win, you know, and just kind of get to that level where, you know, they have made the playoffs, you know, in recent years before last year, but they just never really get past that level. And I think this is a team where you got a guy like a Bumgarner. Now you got a very talented player like Starling Marte. Cole Calhoun, one of the most underrated gloves in the game, not just because he can make some highlight reel catches, but he's just a solid player on the outfield. He makes a lot of the right plays all the time. Yeah, and then you add a couple of guys like Hector Rondon and Junior Guerra to the bullpen. I mean, goodness, Ketel Marte, he's one of my favorite players coming into this year. He's young. He's electric. That's a guy where I really think if he can put another season like he did last Starling Marte again, he'll bring some offensive stuff to the table. I think defensively, I am a little worried about him in center. He's never been a good defensive center fielder. I think he would be much better off in left field. I think they're gonna, with the designated hitter, I think that's only gonna help them. He gave up close to, I think, 10 runs defensively last year. He's never been a good defensive center fielder. I think having, you know, some guys off the bench play over in center, you can put him at DH. I think either way, he's going to be a bat in your lineup that's going to help the offense go, especially in offense. Like, they weren't terrible on offense last year. They ranked 12th. So you've added these guys, like, you know, getting back to Cole Calhoun, he can get you 25, 30 home runs. So, you know, with a decent on base, a decent slugging, yeah, like offensively, this is going to be good. I love Zach Gallen. I think that's a guy where I think in a short season, he's got great stuff. I mean, this might be a bit of a bold prediction, but I could see someone like that in a 60-game season make a run at, maybe get some Cy Young votes. A bit of a bold prediction right there, but I could see he did very good last year. ERA in the twos, just really good electric stuff. So there was a reason why he was a higher pitching prospect with the Marlins before he came over in that trade. I like the bullpen. You got Chafin, you got Archie Bradley, Yohan Lopez. Now you added Aguera to the bullpen. It's just a good all-around team. So I'm not surprised they won 80, 85, 86 games, whatever it was last year, because they were pretty much average all the way around. But then you just added pieces like this. And these young guys are only going to get better. And I really like this team. I really do. I think if there is a dark horse team in Major League Baseball to make a run of the World Series, this is my dark horse team that could really surprise some people, especially in a 60-game season where you don't even know what the heck's going to happen. I don't like the pitching staff in a 7-game series, but baseball is baseball. You don't know what's going to happen. This is a dark horse team to me that could really do some damage.
I agree with you, and it's the pitching staff when you really just look at it too. It's not just going to be dominant just this one year. When you look at Luke Weaver, 25 years old, Gallen, 24, Alex Young, 26. So, you could see this team over these next 3 to 4 years, especially with the young guys that they have coming up in their farm system, because, their farm system is top 10 in the MLB. And something that, I like that you brought up with back in the Los Angeles Angels preview, is that they just need a guy who has experience. And they got that guy in Anthony Rendon who, won a World Series last year. And I think that this Diamondbacks team, as it's going to be very good this next season, when you go into 2021 and you have a 162-game season, if they just get that one guy who has had playoff experience and knows how to win and is able to be that veteran presence there to really help these guys get that confidence, I think that's huge. Because when you look at these guys, there's a lot of young potential, but there's nobody that just really jumps out to you. Kentel Marte is still pretty young. He hasn't really had a lot of experience in the playoffs and that sort of stuff. And so I was very surprised on what Bakota put them as. And I think you're going to agree with me that it's something where Bakota has the same mindset as a lot of MLB fans and just incredibly underrating this team. They have them winning 29 games, 0.6, and losing 34 or 30.4. The team is not going to have a losing record. And they actually have them at a laughable 24% of making the playoffs. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I really think that this team, with the starting pitching as well, is going to surprise a lot of people. And then another team who's just waiting to contend, and I think is still 1 year away, is the San Diego Padres. They're a team who went out and got Manny Machado last year. They went out and got Eric Hosmer the year before to really get that veteran presence and try and get that star power into that lineup. But they're still just waiting for these young guys to really show their full potential. And when they do, forget about it. Padres in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to be in the NLCS, potentially in the World Series. But this rotation is something where it's very young, still a little bit unproven, but a guy like Chris Paddock at the start had a 9-7 record with a 3.33 ERA. There was some injuries last year, but the rest of the rotation kind of makes me nervous when you got Matt, you got Lasucci. They're guys who had rough seasons last year, are going to look to bounce back and show their full potential. But one guy who's going to give you some solid innings is Zach Davies. He went out there and had a 3.55 ERA last season. And it's something where you look at that rotation, and it's not super exciting, but it's young, and it's something that can surprise you. And then when you look at the lineup as well, young, a lot of potential, and you don't really know what's going to happen. But they added a guy like Tommy Pham, who, when we talked about the Rays in the AL East preview, we were really big on Pham. And he's a guy that I completely agree with you could really, really help this Padres lineup and help them score a lot of runs. So how do you feel about the Padres?
Yeah, the Padres, to me, they're very close. I still think they're a few pieces away. Pitching-wise, definitely looking to see what Chris Paddock can do, in a sophomore season. Can he keep up that similar production that he had last year? You got a Joey Lucchesi ERA in the low fours last year. He did give you some innings. Eric Lauer, 4.49 ERA last year. He was fine. I think they do want a guy like Cal Quantrill to step up a little bit on the younger side. High ERA, though. I think they're looking for him to take a step forward this year. Garrett Richards is there. He hasn't really done anything since like 2015 because of injuries and whatnot. I think they're looking for something out of him. I mean, he seems to be healthy this year, kind of going in. Offensively, they were 19th last year. They were fine, but that's kind of surprising to me considering they had a big signing like a Manny Machado. They had a guy like Eric Hosmer. They did have Fernando Tatis Jr. He was electric last year. He definitely entered himself into the conversation of one of the better shortstops in the league. Defensively, I'd love for him to just tighten it up a little bit. He gave up some runs defensively. He had a negative UZR last year. That's a guy where I think he needs to improve in that aspect to be more of a complete player. I think the offense is close to being something. I think they would like to get more out of a guy like Will Myers. Personally, I just don't think he fits in that ballpark. I think a guy like Will Myers, I think, would fit better in like a Fenway Park because he's just more of a pull hitter. Whereas that park in San Diego, it's not very good in that aspect. Tommy Pham, I love the side. I love that trade. They got rid of a good defensive piece in Manuel Margot, but they bring you a winning guy in there like that where he can really kind of set the table, at the top of the order. I think the biggest thing about this team, I think the best part about this team is the bullpen. Kirby Yates, he easily, in my opinion, the best closer in the game right now. A lot of people might say Aroldis Chapman, but to me, Kirby Yates, he's not going to blow you away velocity-wise, but the movement that guy can put on his pitches, he's incredible. He's going into a free agent year, so that's going to be interesting to see what he can do. And then, you got some other guys in there behind him as well. Craig Stammen had a pretty good year. Luis Perdomo, he was fine. Robbie Erlin, Trey Wingenter, though, I think they need to kind of step up a little bit. They had ERAs in the 5s last year. But when you got Kirby Yates that can go out there and save that many games, I mean, he's as locked down as they come. I think the Padres are a talented team. I think they are being a bit overhyped this year. I just don't think they're quite there starting pitching-wise. But they got a lot of good prospects. Look out for a guy like Mackenzie Gore. You got a Luis Patino that's there. I mean, you could see Mackenzie Gore even contribute this year, where I think they need someone like that. They need a guy like that to really give them a chance. Like you said, that's why I think they're, another year or two, maybe 3 might even be pushing it. But, I think they just need another starting pitcher. I think, they need a guy that can really just kind of – they got some good bats in there, but kind of just to keep the flow of that lineup a little bit. I think there were a lot of guys in that lineup that were kind of just dead weight a little bit, where they would maybe get some offense going, and then it would like rallies would just die, and they need guys that can kind of work some walks, that can get on base more. So Padres, I don't think they're quite there yet.
I agree with you, and you listed off a lot of those names in the bullpen, but it's so stacked. You got another guy like Drew Pomeranz. You got another guy like Pagan.
Pomeranz. Yeah.
It's something where, like, with that rotation, as I talked about with the Angels, with their rotation and not having the bullpen to overcompensate, I feel like the Padres are the complete opposite. The rotation is a little bit iffy, but that bullpen is just going to overcompensate for you. You have tons of guys out there, even like Pomeranz too. He's now a full reliever now, but remember back just 2 years ago with the Red Sox, he was a starter. And who the Red Sox actually get him from? The Padres. And it's because he was the best pitcher in the league that year. And so another guy too, is Francisco Mejia. Who knows what he's going to do? He's a big catching power guy. And one other guy as well. When you look at Profar, Jerison Profar really surprised me last year with the Athletics. His average just wasn't there. It was like around 220. But a guy like that who second baseman can put up 25 home runs for you, I really think he's still coming off of that injury, because you got to remember, 3 years in a row coming off of severe injuries. It's something where, especially in a 60-game season, you can see this guy really break out. And you talked about with Will Myers, he really needs to step up as well. But this team is just 1 to 2 years away, like we've been talking about. I really think that this is going to be a really big developmental year for this team, especially like we talked about with the Mariners, getting these guys in these tough situations and really putting them in a small, shortened season to really, ramp up that pressure, to really get them used to the MLB energy. I think is going to be huge. And, they got that huge treasure chest of the #1 farm system in the MLB, just waiting to break out and really show their potential. PECOTA has them winning 29.5, losing 30.5 with a 21.8 chance of making the playoffs. But when you go to another team like the Rockies, it's really interesting how competitive this division could be, but it just isn't there. When you look at a team like the Rockies, it's crazy. You look at this lineup, it's just laughable. All these guys, I'm going to list them off real quick. Ryan McGon, I think I'm saying his last name right, but Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, you got Ramal Tapia, you got David DeHall, you got Brendan Rodgers, you got Nolan Arenado. I mean, those 6 guys are all all-star potential players. And it's just crazy. Any other team that actually had pitching, you would see this team in the World Series. It is just crazy to me, the amount of young talent that this Rockies team has. The pitching has just been absolutely horrendous. I mean, when you look at a guy like Kyle Freeland, who is supposed to be insane, and he goes out there and has a record of 3-11 with a 6.73 ERA. And then when you got another guy like Ramon Marquez, and then you got another guy like Jeff Hoffman, who also put up over 5 ERAs. It's just crazy to me how much money they have not only spent on bullpen, but they have spent on just starting pitching and had high expectations, but they've just gotten the worst luck when it comes to performance on their pitching staff and their bullpen as well. How do you feel about the Rockies, Robbie?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of good pieces on that team. Offensively, Arenado, one of the best players in the game. Trevor Story, one of the best shortstops in the game. Charlie Blackmon, he's kind of digressing a little bit defensively. Then you got guys like Ryan McMahon, David Dahl, where they can be very productive. Brendan Rodgers, like you mentioned, he's an exciting young player. Had shoulder surgery last year, but I think with all the time now that he's had and with the layoff that we've had, I think he should be fine. Offensively, I'm not really worried about that team. They can put some runs on the board, especially at home, considering they're playing at Coors Field. It's just the pitching. It's the pitching. I mean, John Gray was fine. I think I would like him to throw some more innings. Herman Vasquez did throw some innings, but he had an ERA close to 5. What happened to Kyle Freeland? I mean, this was a guy back a couple years ago. He was really good. And then he just fell off the face of the planet last year. And so he was their opening day starter last year, and he had an ERA in the 6s. So, I mean, the bullpen was terrible as well. I mean, the starting pitching, they ranked 26th in 2019, and the bullpen ranked 29th. Like, I like Oberg, pretty low ERA. But, I mean, Wade Davis, what the heck happened to him? I mean, ERA in the 8s. I mean, incredible how these guys have just dropped off. I mean, there was a Carlos Estevez that was okay, ERA below 4, but who else? I mean, I don't know. But then again, it's like it seems that the Rockies are this team where anytime you're low on this team, if anyone's low on this team or everyone, whatever, they seem to just put this really good season together. And then when everyone is high on this team, they just throw a dud out there. So who knows what this team's going to do this year? They have the offense for it. If they can just get some guys to step up in the pitching, I think that would be great. I mean, that's what they need. They need guys that can pitch, like you mentioned. So I don't know what to expect with this team this year. They could have another dud of a season, or they could shock the world. I mean, who knows? So
it's so mind-boggling to me, that infield, or when you just look at the starting nine. I mean, like the guys I listed off: McMahon at first, second base Brendan Rodgers, shortstop Trevor Story, and Arenado at third. I mean, how much better can you get than that? It really makes no sense to me how this team was only able to win 71 games last year. But as we've talked about, it's the pitching. And you could really sort of correlate how the luck that the Rockies have had is sort of where they throw money at pitchers and really have huge expectations, is sort of the luck that the Red Sox have had over the last 5 years. And, once they step into Boston or once they step into Colorado, it just all blows up in their face. And it's something where, in my opinion, if the pitching can do something, this team will surprise a lot of people. But if nothing changes, you're just going to see the same mediocre team going out there, just because, as we've talked about, and I've said this multiple times during this video, pitching wins championships. And Bakota has them winning 27.3 games, losing 32.7, with an 8.1 chance of making the playoffs. And we're going to finish off the NL West with the San Francisco Giants, and they're just a team, when you just look at them, it just irks me with the amount of old guys that they have, that they're just waiting for their contracts to be over. Like, you got Johnny Cueto, you got Justin Marger, Justin Marger was actually really good last year with a 3.52 ERA. Right, but when you look at another guy like Brendan Crawford, Evan Longoria, Brendan Bell, like, these guys just are not the same. But one guy that I'm very excited for, who is up in the higher late 30s, Hunter Pence. Last year, his 297, 18 home runs. I think he's going to be a great veteran presence on that team, and is going to be somebody who has always brought energy, a lot of confidence into teams when he goes in there. And I'm not saying that he's going to go out and have the same exact season they had last year, but I'm not saying to you that he won't, because when you looked at what people expected from 2019, it wasn't even close to the stats that he was able to produce. So when you got another guy like young Yaz, who's going to be a bright spot for that lineup, they're just waiting for a lot of their young guys, like Joey Bart as well, to really come up. And it's something where, without Buster Posey, what is this team really going to be able to do? Because, in my opinion, you're not going to see Joey Bart out there. Because as everybody talks about, obviously guys who are in Double-A are usually go right up to the majors. But Bart only played 22 games in Double-A. You didn't really see a huge sample size from Bart. And it's something where you don't really want to rush him up there when he's your prized possession and the next Buster Posey. And so I really obviously don't see this team doing too much. They're another team where they're still in the middle of the rebuild phase. How are you feeling about the Dodgers?
Yeah, the Giants.
Dodgers.
Yeah, the Giants they're kind of in no man's land right now, where they got these guys who aren't the same. Evan Longoria, he seems to be kind of digressing every year. Who knows what Johnny Cueto is going to do? Jeff Samardzija. Pablo Sandoval. My goodness, that guy. I can't stand Pablo Sandoval. But you do got a young, exciting player like Mike Yastrzemski. Doesn't know Buster Posey this year. I would actually expect the Giants to get Bart some playing time this year, where maybe not like a full season, but I would expect, because they have the DH now, I would expect, why not play some time at catcher, get some at bats at the DH spot. Really, what else do they have to lose? There's not really. I know you don't want to rush him, but he did do pretty well, and he was having a really good spring training. So yeah, I agree. You don't want to rush him, but I think it's. What else do they have going on this year? I could really see this team really having a kind of like a fire sale at the trade deadline a little bit. I could see if Johnny Cueto can establish his value again. I could see him maybe going to a contender, a Jeff Samardzija, maybe. Who knows? A team that could use some pitching. Look at the Dodgers. They're a team where they didn't have David Price, or they're not going to have David Price this year. Maybe if they feel like they're still lacking a starting pitcher, maybe they trade for someone. I don't know if they'd get a Johnny Cueto or Jeff Samardzija within the same division, but I don't know. There are teams out there that could use some pitching. a guy like Evan Longoria, maybe a team that could use a bat if he's showing that he could still hit. He had 20 home runs last year. He was fine. He had a OPS in the 800s last year. So I could see, a Giants team, like I said, their top prospects. You could see Joey Bart getting some time this year, but Marco Luciano, their top shortstop prospect, Elliot Ramos, Hunter Bishop, those guys are still a couple of years away. So that's what I'm saying with no man's land, because they're kind of like in this spot where their better players are not going to help them win a championship, but then their top prospects are still a couple of years away, where it's going to be a lame couple of years for the Giants, but they do have some exciting prospects. So that's what I'm saying. Trade some of these guys. Try and get some prospects back. You're not going to win this year. You're not going to have anything. Get some excitement into your farm system. Like I said, Cueto, Zamarja, Longoria, these other guys on that team, where if they can just show that they are still valuable pieces to a team, absolutely. So I say for that team, make some trades.
Exactly. I mean, the Giants are a team, like, I love that mindset, because that is the same exact mindset that I went into with the Giants going into last trade deadline. And as just a baseball fan, like just putting myself out of the Red Sox fan into a Giants fan and thinking about their mindsets of this team, it just irked me and made me so frustrated just that they stayed pat. Oh, I understand they went on a 10 to 12 game winning streak, but are you kidding me? You are telling me that you had the expectations that you were going to make the playoffs. What, are you just starting stand-up comedy? Come on, like, give me a break. It was just crazy to me. Not trade Madison Bumgarner, I understand. We got the ties with him and Bruce Bochy. We got the ties with him and the team. But it's the same exact thing with the Royals. The Royals are in the position that they are in right now because they didn't trade a guy like Lorenzo Cain, Hosmer, Moustakas. So it's the same exact thing with the Giants. I have the expectation that they're going to do a fire sale, but am I going to bet money on it? No. Because I would have bet billions of dollars last year that they were going to do the same exact thing, and Zippo, they did nothing. And so it's something where I completely agree with you saying, get some excitement in that farm system. Get the fans excited for the future and start to get these 35-year-olds off the team. This is just a Giants team that has really frustrated me over the years, just how they've orchestrated and gone about this team, because any other team would have already traded these guys, would have already started looking towards the future. And it's something where the Giants have really been in the middle of rebuild mode or contention over the last 3 years. I just hate it. Why are you just going to stay in the middle, go one way or the other? And so they're a team that was able to go 77 and 85 last year. And in my opinion, if it was a 162-game season, you could potentially see this team lose close to 100 games. But Pacoda has them slated to win, 24.9, 34.1 with a 2.2 chance of making the playoffs. And there's just nothing really excited about this that I'm excited about with that Giants team. So I just think that they're going to be at the bottom of this division for most of this season. So now let's get on to who will be the most surprising and most disappointing team in the NL West. For me, the most surprising is the Arizona Diamondbacks. I just think that, as we've talked about, that team has such low expectations. I really do not see this team being as bad as people are really expecting. And for most disappointing, I can really see with the amount of high expectations that people do have for the San Diego Padres that they just won't live up to expectations.
Yeah, I agree with the disappointing. To where I think just a lot of people are high on the Padres right now. But I don't see him really doing much. I mean, unless maybe a Mackenzie Gore comes up and just lights the world on fire, and they just have this like crazy pitching staff. But I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see it with the Padres. I could be dead wrong. But to me, the team that has the potential to be the most surprising to me is the Rockies. That offense is really good. I know pitching wins. I completely agree. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what they're going to do pitching-wise. I'm assuming that they're not going to be good. But, I mean, they have some guys there that can do some stuff. Can Wade Davis bounce back? I mean, that would be huge for the bullpen. Can Kyle Freeland bounce back? I mean, if they can get these guys, can John Gray stay consistent? Can Herman Vasquez take a step forward? They have the potential, I think, to be a wild card team, because they do it every single time, where every single year where they are just not being projected well by Bakota or no one's picking them, they just seem to come out of nowhere with this really good season. And I could see them being a big surprise team this year, because everyone's counting them out. They have an offense to get to the playoffs. So that is a team that can hit. So can the pitching bounce back? Only time will tell. But yeah, so that's what I think. And to me personally, with the Diamondbacks, I think, just because I'm so high on the Diamondbacks myself, to me they wouldn't be a surprise if, you know, I don't think they're going to win a division. Like, who knows? 60-game season, who knows? I mean, who knows? But a wild card team, absolutely. But in the eyes of many people, I mean, it's crazy to me that they're not being talked about. I don't know why the Diamondbacks are not being talked about as this team that could be in a wild card. So, yeah. So those are my teams that I think could be surprising and the most disappointing.
I think it's just because they traded Goldschmidt, and people think that they're still in like this rebuild mode. But when you go out and win 85 games, listen, MLB fans, you're not in rebuild mode anymore.
Yeah.
So watch out for that Diamondback team. And, you know, the rest of this division, I think, is going to be really exciting. It's kind of all up in the air with some exciting young guys, as we talked about, the Rockies, Padres, all these other teams. But that right there is the NL West preview. I appreciate your thoughts on this division, Robbie, and I hope you guys.
So that's a wrap for this division preview. I hope you guys really did enjoy this video and were able to learn a lot from all the analytical and informative information that Robbie and I gave you to get you ready for the MLB 2020 season. I hope you're getting as excited as I am for this season to start. Please don't forget, go over and subscribe to ROBBIE HYDE. He posts some great MLB content, and he's going to be helping you get ready for the MLB season as well, and going to be posting a lot of videos throughout the 2020 season. Also, please go down and subscribe to Iggy's Sports Talk. I've been putting a lot of effort so I can get you guys as ready for the MLB season as possible. Also, give this video a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. So, that is it, like I said, for this division preview. Look for the next preview so you can get ready for this next MLB season. Thanks, guys.
You guys did enjoy it.